Hi, my name's Mark, and today I'll be showing you how to build your own solar panel capable of producing approximately 60 watts for under $200. As you're probably aware, solar panels can be quite expensive, but by following the instructions in this video, you'll be able to save a whole lot of money by making your own. We explain in detail how you can do this at home and what you can do with the finished product. First, I'm going to go through the different tools that are necessary for building a solar panel at home. These tools are what I like to use. If you're more comfortable using something else to do specific jobs, then by all means use that. We're building a panel with a white acrylic backside and a clear acrylic front, so you'll need a tool to cut that with. For that purpose, I have an acrylic cutter, which is used to score the acrylic so that you can put it on an edge and break it off easily. To screw down the frame, we have a drill and some drill bits. You'll need to have drill bits of two sizes, smaller size for the pilot holes, the bigger one for drilling the actual hole, and a unibit for drilling the hole for the chase nipple. We're using liquid silicone caulk throughout the job, so we need a caulk gun and silicone. Gloves are very important when handling the solar cells. Oils from your hands can stain the cells and reduce amp output, so whenever you handle cells, make sure you're wearing gloves. Next, we have the soldering iron, which is used to solder the cells together. You may also want to wear a mask when soldering because the fumes from the solder can be quite obnoxious and can give you a headache. Here we have some protective eyewear. It's important to wear something to protect your eyes during the build. When you're soldering, sometimes the flux and solder can flick up. You definitely don't want that in your eye. An important item is the multimeter. You want to make sure that your multimeter can measure both volts and amps. A multimeter like this one only costs about $10 from any hardware store. This is a must-have item, as we'll use it to test the solar panel when it's finished to see if it's producing the correct wattage. We'll need some screws. When selecting screws, make sure you use stainless steel screws as they last much longer. You don't want your solar panel frame to fall apart after a few years due to cheap screws. Stainless steel screws will cost a little bit more, but it's a very worthwhile investment. Then we have a wire stripper and two screwdrivers, a Phillips and a flathead. You might not even need to use the flathead, but it's a good idea to have one on hand just in case. You'll also need fine point needle nose pliers, which are good for crimping the tab wire. Also, some useful tools are a pencil or a marker and X-Acto knife. Then the carpenter square, which you'll use to make sure that you get 90 and 45 degree corners, and measuring tape to get the right measurements. In the remainder of this video, we'll go into the various materials you'll be using to construct your solar panel. The most important part of a solar panel is the individual cells. The cells are what turns the sun's energy into usable DC power, which we'll then convert into AC power. You can buy all different shapes and sizes for your solar cells. We're using standard cells that produce about 1.75 watts each. You can also purchase pre-tabbed cells. These cost a little bit more, but it means you don't need to tab each of the cells yourself. We're using untabbed cells, so you can see how to join each of the cells together. Next, we have the bus wires, which we'll be using to connect the cells at the ends of the strings and which will be connected to wires that exit the panel. You can use low-gauge exit wires because the panel we're building won't produce much more than 3 amps, and the voltage should not exceed much more than 18 volts. 5 amp wire should be fine, and you can purchase this from any hardware store. Next, you'll need a junction box or a J box and a chase nipple through which the exit wires are going to come out of. When you have the panel all wired up, the exit wires will be live whenever the solar panel is in the sun. It's a good idea to wrap the ends of the exit wires in electric tape to prevent any chance of shorting out. Here we have some soldering flux. This will help the solder stick to the contacts. You can purchase this in bottles or as a flux pen. Next is the solder, which is a 60-40 rosin cord leaded solder mix. Then we have the silicone caulk, which is going to provide you with the best protection against the elements. The silicone caulk is used to seal up the solar panel to prevent any moisture getting into it, as this would reduce efficiency. Therefore, it's of utmost importance to make sure that the panel is nicely sealed up. And last but not least, a white acrylic sheet for the back, a clear acrylic sheet for the front of the panel, and a C-profile aluminum frame, which will ensure that the cells are protected from the elements. Some people use plywood for the backing of the panel. However, we do not recommend this if you plan on keeping the panel for a long time. Plywood will bend over time, moisture will work its way into the panel, and the solar cells will end up cracking. A plywood panel on the roof of a house will not last more than a few months. So if you're after something more durable, which I'm sure you are, use acrylic. Well, that's all the tools and materials you're going to need. Again, if you prefer to use some other tools, then by all means, use what you're more comfortable with.